Okay, we're now live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk, and good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. So we'll go call this meeting to order, and I will look to Councillor DeLeo for the land acknowledgement. Councillor DeLeo?
Councillor DeLeo, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges that it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the people of the Wyandot Nation also inhabited these lands. We acknowledge that these nations were sovereign nations existing before the arrival of settlers. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water. We also acknowledge that the waterways near us have a long history predating European arrival. Since time immemorial, waterways were the lifeblood of the indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In the spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for all future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor DeLeo. And now moving on to item number 2, proclamations. 2.1 is Crime Stoppers Month, that the Council proclaim the month of January 2025 is Crime Stoppers Month in the town of Wasaga Beach. Questions or comments on this? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That motion carries. And now moving on to item number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. We have none before us at this time. If at some point throughout the meeting you feel you have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. Under item number 4, adoptions of the agenda, that the contents of the agenda for January 16th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Sorry, I'm just trying to see everybody here. For some reason, it has disappeared on my screen.
There, when you touch, it's in the top right corner.
No, I'm not seeing that. Bear with me 1 second, please. I can only see Councillor Belanger. There we go. Sorry. All right. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And on item number 5, approval of the minutes. 5.1, the special council meeting minutes of December 12th. That the minutes of the special council meeting held December 12th, 2024 are hereby adopted as circulated. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor DeLeo and seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Item number 5.2, the recommended motion is that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 12th, 2024 are hereby adopted as circulated. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Timms, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries. And items number 6, 7, and 8, we have no items with those 3 categories today. So we'll move on to item number 9, which is government relations. And I'll turn this to our CAO, Andrew McNeil, to speak. Andrew?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just a quick update on a delegation we have this coming Monday with a parliamentary assistant to Minister Sakaria. It pertains to issues that we've previously briefed council on in the West End, specifically the area around Beechwood Road. As council is aware, we have a public meeting this evening, and what we have heard from the community as part of our engagement to develop the secondary plan is that the community would like a different vision for the Beechwood Road corridor. They've talked about active transportation, more access to the street, more connectivity. We're looking to create parallel network to take some of the pressure off of Beechwood Road and the potential congestion that could develop there over the coming decades. So we've requested a delegation, excuse me. Sorry. Good thing about virtual, you can mute yourself when you need to cough. So we have a delegation on Monday with the parliamentary assistant. We'll be asking for an update on a letter that we sent prior to the Christmas break. The letter specifically asked for reduction of setbacks from Highway 26, Beechwood Road. We'd like the province to explore downloading of the Beechwood Road corridor so that the municipality can better control our future and create a community more in line with what the residents are seeking out in the West End. Failing a complete downloading, we'd like delegation of authority to oversee the planning of the corridor so that we don't have to defer everything to MTO, because oftentimes we have competing objectives. MTO is very good at building high-speed corridors, highways, but the finer grain things that we're interested in to build great complete communities is often at odds with those objectives. So I think downloading planning approvals authority is a logical thing for us to explore. So we've made those requests. We're seeking an answer. And I would also share that this is not just about Beechwood. It's also about Lions Court, which is south of Moseley. Lions Court is particularly important right now given the application that was recently filed by Costco. So for council's benefit, Costco application is now live. They have formally submitted their site plan. It's going through the approvals process. It's being circulated to all of the relevant commenting parties. I should qualify, it has not been approved. The deal has not been finalized, but the application has formally been submitted. With that, I'll turn it back to Mayor Smith.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Questions or comments from members of council? All right, seeing none, I think it's important to note, as the CAO indicated, that council has now submitted, Costco has now submitted an application for a new Costco here in Wasaga Beach. That's very positive news, and we're looking forward to moving that along. There's no other questions or comments. We will now go to the motion. And that is that the following reports, there is no motion for this. This is just for information. My apologies. So now moving on to item number 10, then staff reports. The following reports have been pulled and moved to matters for considerations to be voted on separately. Items 10.2, 10.3, 10.6, and 10.7. Are there any other comments from council or staff on the consent report? Seeing none from anyone, then the recommended motion is that the following consent list items under the staff reports and that all recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding the items pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right. And moving on to item number 11, correspondence items. The following correspondence items have been pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. And that is items 11.4 and 11.5. And I understand Councillor Timms and Councillor Eagle wish to comment on 11.3. So we'll do that now. Councillor Timms, you go ahead first. You're muted, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did want to comment on this item. I did have a conversation with the clerk and learned a little bit more background about it. I feel quite strongly that elected officials should be held to the same accountability as any member of a corporation or employment, an employee. And while we're not asking for support, particularly to the resolution of the Northern Ontario Women's Caucus, I do think this is something that we should keep our eye on and realize that there's no place for workplace misconduct in politics. So just a comment, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. And we'll move to Councillor Ego. And reminder to turn off your mute.
Yeah, got it.
Excellent.
Thank you. And through your worship, yes, just mine is a very quick comment on this, that I totally support the resolution from the North Ontario Women's, and I will speak to this subject further in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, if there's no other comments, then we will, the recommended motion is the following consent list items under correspondence be received for information, excluding the items pulled and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 12 is minutes of boards and committees, and we have none of those today to report. Item number 13 is now matters for consideration. And the first item here on the list is overnight emergency warming center update. And I believe that Councillor Timms, you pulled this. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do want to congratulate the chief on making this initiative a reality. I did some research about One Community Services and discovered that they're a very compassionate organization trained to support the homeless community. I'm very grateful to the county and especially Faith Missionary Church for hosting the warming center. This is all good news all around. Since the winter of 2023, it's my understanding that we've only had 2 individuals who utilized the temporary center that we had created overnight. And last year being milder, I dare say we did experience temperatures lower than -10, but we weren't prepared to shelter people at that temperature. My concern is this: as the homeless community becomes more open and aware of the center, do we have more, and we have more than 10 individuals show up, will we be able to support and handle that? Because I know we have only 10 beds available. A second concern of mine is that I'm wondering about who calls it. I think from the report, Chief, it appears that the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit makes the call for the center to open. I was wondering if that is the case. And in your report under 3.11 transportation, you mentioned that individuals and families will have access to free transit to the center. Do we think that we have families that include children living outdoors? And also, I think this is going to be very, very important to communicate that transportation is free on the days that the warming center is open for people. So those were the things that were going through my mind when I was reading the report. I wonder if you care to elaborate, Chief?
Thank you very much, Councillor DeLeo. I'll look to Chief Williams. Chief?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the councillor. Thank you for taking the time to read the report. It is an important initiative. It does currently have a capacity of 10 beds and activates at a temperature threshold of -10. What I can share with you is that as of today, it is planned to continually operate until January 22nd, at which time the temperatures will be reevaluated. And the community members can find out more information about this center by contacting 211, contacting the church themselves, or they can check the status of all Simcoe County warming stations by visiting simcoe.ca/winter warming. In the event that we do reach capacity at this site, then individuals who showed up would be referred to other available resources. So there are other winter warming operations that are now open in Barrie, Bradford, and Orillia, as well as I believe Midland. So we would be looking to refer those individuals to those locations where there might be capacity. And I also want to emphasize that this new program is in addition to the current shelter system that operates 365 days a year on Beechwood Road and is operated by this the Busby Center. So in essence, I think we've done a great job. We've doubled the capacity of available beds once it hits -10, but certainly this is something we're going to have to continually monitor and make a determination into the future whether 10 beds is enough or if there's an alternate strategy that is required. I'll come back to your second question because I don't quite remember what it was, but your third question was in regards to transportation. So yeah, the goal is to take away barriers for individuals that don't have the funds or the ability to get to the warming centers on their own accord. So what we have done is there are bus passes available by the service operator at the warming center, and when someone arrives at the warming center, they will be given 2 bus passes, one to get home and then one to return home the next time. So our overall goal is to make sure everybody can get there, as easily as possible. And to your question regarding children, I believe that there are throughout Simcoe County families that are living rough outdoors. I have not come across any myself in Wasaga Beach, but that is certainly a reality of the situation. So we would be doing everything we can to accommodate their needs within the warming shelter to make sure that everyone remains safe. And your second question, I apologize, but I've lost it.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, my second question was, is it Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit that makes the call for when the center is open?
Thank you, Councillor Timms, and through the mayor. So in this case, because this is a county-funded initiative, what occurs is Simcoe County recommends to their service providers that the warming centers be opened up, which occurs at the -10 threshold, including wind chill, or whenever a significant winter weather event is expected. At that point, it is up to the service provider as well as the church to confirm their availability to open up overnight, which we would anticipate through the agreement will happen on a regular basis. And then the announcement is made on the county's website that it's now opened up. So the only time we're going to be using the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit notification protocol is for our daytime warming centers, which will continue to occur at the Recplex and as well at our new arena and library. We will utilize those thresholds in order to open up our spaces so that during the daytime people can have a safe, clean area to visit, and then in the evenings they would be referred back to the other overnight services.
And I would note that this is the same type of process that is used in all warming centers basically across the county that appears to be working quite well. So we'll have to wait and see how it goes. But anything further, Councillor Timms? Okay.
No, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Fire Chief Williams, I have a couple questions for you. First off, the transportation. Are dogs and cats allowed to go on the bus for transport? So that would be one. And then, are the dogs and cats allowed in the warming center? And then, are they allowed during the day at the Recplex in the warming centers as well, people that have pets? Thank you.
Go ahead,
Thank you, Council DeLeo, and through the chair. So I would actually refer to General Manager Lalonde regarding whether or not animals are permitted on public transportation. I would imagine if they're a service animal, they absolutely are, but I don't know the circumstance around the rest. Regarding the ability to house the animals in the warming center, that's an ongoing question. I have posed it to the church, the county, and our service provider, and have been told that it is ongoing discussions. There are some warming centers that do allow animals, and they are willing to look at the available options. However, as you can imagine, that does create some complexity within the center itself, and they want to make sure if they're going to permit it that it's done properly, and it would be done on a case-by-case basis for the safety of all the participants. And I'm sorry, your final question?
No, that was it. For the Recplex, if they're allowed on the bus, and if they're allowed in the warming centers.
Yeah, so at our other public facilities, service animals are always welcome, and my understanding is that other animals are welcome into the space, provided that they're well behaved and not becoming a disruption to staff, patrons, or the facility itself.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Any other questions or comments? While we're
Sorry, Your Worship.
Chief, go ahead.
I was just going to ask General Manager Lalonde to comment on the public transportation piece with animals.
Okay. General Manager Lalonde?
Thank you, Chief. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the transit system only allows service animals on board. So, should there be a decision to allow animals at these centers, then that's something that we would have to take into consideration and provide direction to our operator accordingly.
All right. Good with that then, Councillor DeLeo? Thank you very much. Okay. We're here, Chief. I just think it's important. I know that Deputy Mayor Snell wanted to hear a little more about this as well, but if you could just comment on our fires, structure fires recently and around fire safety for the public to hear and have a better understanding as to what we've been dealing with and how important it is for them to pay a little more attention to fire safety within their homes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the importance of home fire safety. So during the first week of January, Wasaga Beach actually experienced 2 serious overnight fires. In both cases, the initial 911 reports included individuals that were trapped inside the homes. Thankfully, all the occupants, they did escape. However, the risk to their safety as well as the risk to our firefighters was very real. Unfortunately, both fires resulted in the destruction of both the dwellings and the contents, and the occupants are not able to return home. And to make matters worse, these incidents were 100% preventable, caused by poor decision-making as well as the misuse of smoking materials. And Your Worship, as you may know, between 2023 and 2024, there were approximately 250 lives in Ontario that were lost due to fires, including 2 Wasaga Beach residents. And, that is something that is, unacceptable in our community. And we must all work very, very hard to make sure that these sorts of tragedies don't continue and hopefully never happen again. So I did have a couple of just important reminders that, residents can take to protect themselves and their property. Most importantly, install and regularly test your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms and ensure that they're replaced after every 10 years. Develop and practice a home escape plan for all your family members. And when doing so, please consider the cognitive and physical abilities of everyone that lives in your house. Really, really important is ensuring that exits remain unobstructed. Fires develop very, very quickly, and you may only have a minute or so to get out of your house, and any blocked door could pose a real life safety issue. And understanding the most common causes of fires, specifically here in Wasaga Beach, is really important. Our residents can prevent fires by safely disposing of smoking materials, never leaving cooking unattended, avoiding using damaged wiring and electronics, charging batteries with only manufacturer-approved cables and adapters, and disposing of damaged equipment promptly, using battery-operated candles instead of open flames, and never leaving candles unattended, keeping fireplaces and space heaters at least 3 feet away from anything that might burn, and finally, just understanding that the risk of fire-related injury and death significantly increases when occupants are intoxicated. And I would just leave it at that. If there is any questions from our community, our fire department is always available. Contact us here at the fire station or visit our website for more information, and we'd be happy to help with any home fire safety planning that's required. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief. We can't stress enough how important it is, folks, to pay attention to this and to make sure that you and your families are safe at all times. It's alarming to hear the numbers, and it's alarming to see what's happened so far this year within the town of Wasaga Beach. So thank you for that, Chief. All right, we'll now go back to the recommended motion for the overnight warming centers. If there's no other questions or comments on this. All right, seeing none, the motion is that the report titled Overnight Emergency Warming Center Update to the Council Meeting of January 16, 2025 be received, and the Council approve the updated Municipal Emergency Warming and Cooling Center policy attached to this report forming Appendix A. And before I call or ask the clerk to call a vote, I think it's important that we all just give our gratitude and our thanks to the Faith Missionary Church here in Wasaga Beach, as has been mentioned by other members of council, for stepping forward and doing this. This is an absolute vital service that is required in all communities, but here in Wasaga Beach for certain, and we thank them along with the county for all the efforts in helping us to get this done. Madam Clerk, if you could call the vote, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could just ask for a mover and seconder.
That is moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And now moving on to the next item, which is check registers. And this was pulled by Councillor Timms and Councillor DeLeo. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. Knowing the stretched capacity of our Treasury Department and now learning that providing registers online is a courtesy and not a requirement, I do support this decision. The Library Board, which I sit on, regularly reviews our check registers, and without the context or the backstory for the post, it's often unclear what the expenditure is for. So fortunately, in that situation, we have a staff member there to elaborate. But in the case of what we're seeing in social media, where there is a lot of incorrect speculation because you can't understand what the posts are for. I also have read very harsh comments, and it's unfortunate, but it happens very regularly. So these are the reasons why I feel that this is a good move for our Treasury Department. I don't think we can keep paying overtime to provide something that is unnecessary, and knowing that the public can look at the other reports that are provided. This is something that I feel is a good move for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I feel the opposite. So, to me, the monthly check registry is one of the ways our residents can transparently see the monthly ongoings of tax dollars. I understand that they're constantly on social media where they're attacking. I get that, I really do, but I guess that's the price of being in politics. While the idea of saving work and a couple of $1,000s may first glance seem like a good idea, I feel it will heavily limit the ability of our residents to see their own money at work. Tax dollars are public dollars, and I really believe the public deserves to have monthly updates on how tax dollars are being used. It sends a message of transparency and promotes trust. Surely this is worth the expense and the time. For this reason, I will not be supporting this motion. However, should this motion pass anyway, my question will be, will councillors have access to these monthly or semi-monthly registries?
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Belanger?
Sorry, trouble unmuting. I would probably call on our CFO to elaborate, but I want to ensure our residents that we have a budget process and an internal audit system and a lot of checks and balances to ensure that money is spent wisely. Again, I would agree with Councillor Timms that sometimes there is speculation that is used to create doubt as to the job we are doing as a town. But I think, again, even in looking at this year's budget of 3.9%, and if you take into account the fact that MPAC is frozen, the rates again for assessment, it's a 1.9%, and I can tell you that was an extremely challenging job for staff to get to that point. But it also indicates the reverence and how seriously we consider the spending of taxpayers' money. And if the CFO wants to make any further comment, I would recommend that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I will call on the CFO here shortly to give us some further input and then look to other questions or comments. I know that we did look to other communities, and the CFO can report on that as to who does this and who doesn't. But any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, I see our CAO, Andrew, has his hand up. Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jocelyn, CFO, would you like to go before me, or would you like me to go first?
I'm fine. You go first. Thank you.
Okay. I thank you so much, and through Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the comments that have been made. So the community understands, the budget that staff work with is approved through the budget process. That is a public process. Staff also operate within a series of controls. There's procurement policies, spending limits, etc. So to my knowledge, and I am only aware from 2014 on, there has never been one expenditure show up on a check register that was not appropriate. You may disagree with policy and direction, and that is fine. People can do that. But what staff do is follow the processes that are in place to control what we do. Every year, the CFO works with the auditor, who goes through every expenditure that has been made by staff to ensure that everything was done appropriately and correctly. And if anything is out of line, it gets flagged. The issue that I see happening here is that the check register, I believe for political reasons, has been weaponized. And what is happening is staff are being attacked, and to Councillor Tim's point, without the backstory of understanding what the expenditures are, staff are being attacked. That's where I get concerned, because it's demoralizing to staff, and I feel it's highly inappropriate. For something that we are not actually required to do, I believe having that weaponized against staff is something that should no longer continue. There is still quarterly reporting that happens, and the CFO can speak to that. So I would strongly recommend that we cease this practice and stop the attacks against staff who do not operate in the political sphere. They're just carrying out their daily job. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And just remind when everyone's finished, please lower your hand. Councillor White?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just a quick question. Has the town ever received an actual question, concern, complaint from a resident about items on the check register? I just wonder what the actual engagement with this is. I had an assumption that we hadn't, but I thought I would pose the question here publicly to see what kind of complaints or communication the residents give us.
I'm assuming you're posing that question to the CFO, Councillor White?
Well, I'm not too sure. I would invite either the CFO or the CAO to answer that. If a comment or a question or a complaint comes in from a resident, I'm not too sure which one of those two would be directed towards.
All right. So we'll start with our Madam CFO. Good morning, Jocelyn.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. I'll address a couple of the comments that have been made here. We'll start with maybe Councillor White's question, just because it was just the most current one. Generally, no, we do not have inquiries about the check register, although I do recall, I believe there was one about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was because the description that was used wasn't clear. I do not remember what the description was. I just remember that we had to clarify, and we were more careful with our descriptions going forward from that point on. So that answers Councillor White's question. Another point I'd like to address is, I think the appropriate channel here is the quarterly report that is brought forward to council. This is where we actually highlight any changes that are going on in the previous quarter that might vary from our budget. So, I mean, if expenditures are being incurred, they're in line with budgets or approved authorizations, we don't need to focus on those ones. However, if there are variances or something is not looking like it's going to be in line with budget, then we have that conversation and we address those points And I think that's the appropriate mechanism to have those conversations. As well, there are, issues as that were mentioned by one of the previous counselors that might come up during the year. Those issues, if there's anything, again, those internal controls that we have, if anything is not in line with internal control, it's addressed immediately, so it's minor, it's corrected, and there are not any ongoing significant problems. We do have lots of processes in place, lots of internal controls. All of our staff are constantly being reminded of them, and we do follow them closely. And then our auditors, when they come in at the end of the year, they do various testing to make sure that these processes and internal controls that we have indicated to them we are using, they then go and test to make sure that they are working. And they are working, and we've had very good, clear audits year after year. So I guess that addressed Councillor Belanger's question about ensuring that we have compliance and that we have controls and that our auditors are involved. The last question I have to address is related to Councillor Deleu's comment about will council have access to these registers. So we would not produce these registers under the recommendation that is here in the staff report. We don't have a need for those particular documents. They are not serving a purpose to staff in any way at all. There are regular registers that come off with our accounts payable payments. Those are reviewed by council and myself on a weekly basis when the payments are going out. All of the backup is there, and we see in real time what is being paid and what is the backup behind it. And any questions that might arise at the time regarding those payments, they're addressed in the moment before the payment is sent out. So I believe we have lots of controls in place, lots of appropriate controls that give us good stewardship over our payments, and as well, it gives us good fiscal responsibility. So I'm quite comfortable with what is being recommended here, and I hope I've addressed everyone's questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Belanger?
Yes, I just, in case there's any confusion, because we just had one case where we say we didn't get a lot of inquiries from residents, and then we have a situation where we say staff is attacked. So I just wanted to clarify, and I remember one specific example where I believe it was approximately a $500 check register, and someone on social media thought it was for a council lunch, and there was, again, very inappropriate comments being made across social media with no attempt to have contacted the town and found out the true expense. And I believe it was a much larger event, and it included it was a social which included some residents and different things, and it was an approved $500 expense. But these are the kind of things that happen, to the CA's point about weaponizing, and they don't take the time to get the true information, because the objective is to cast doubt on what a very hardworking council and staff is doing, and how well we do respect taxpayers' money. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. CAO? You're muted, Andrew.
My apologies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councillor Belanger. I just wanted to echo Councillor Belanger's comments. In my time working for the municipality of Wasaga Beach, I have only received one inquiry about an expenditure on a check register from a member of the public. I have had a couple of members of council question me publicly between 2014 and 18, but never from the public. What I am seeing is attacks happening on social media And those residents who are making those attacks, making no attempt to actually reach out and ask the questions. I have office hours every Monday morning. Our staff are easily reachable, and a simple inquiry about, can you explain what this is? We could easily answer the question. So my take on that is it is politically motivated, and I believe it's somewhat inappropriate. So that's why I believe it would be smart to cease this practice.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up with my comments. I think that notwithstanding the false information, disinformation that is created by the check register commenting, I think the big issue here is that our staff is very stretched on a capacity level. This requires overtime to get it done, and when we have a priority to make work-life balance and keep people happy and well in their jobs, this is putting a lot of strain on that issue. So I think that is the biggest piece to this report, is that our Treasury Department just doesn't have the capacity to continue to do this. Those check registers were often late to get on the website for that very reason, which again created lots of social media and political critique. But I don't think that's the biggest issue. I think the biggest issue here is capacity and the financial cost of doing something that is not a requirement. That the fact that we have good reporting available offsets that concern for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor DeLeo, did I see your hand up?
Yes.
Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you. Just to reiterate what I was saying, I think a big reason for this, why I'm not going to support it. First off, I agree with Andrew that we are getting attacked on Facebook, and I think it's very sad that they're rude, they're abusive some of the times, but I think it's a handful, and it's just not right to the rest of the residents. But I have to say that the fact that if I want a registry each month, like I'd like to see it, only being, and I'm just going to come out and say it, is that on the last one, I found something on there that I had to question, and I didn't agree with it. So that was the only way I knew that expense happened, is by looking at this registry. So if I don't get to see the registry, I have no idea what has been spent on a particular item, or, like I said, I caught something, and if it wasn't for the registry, I would not have seen it. So for me, I know it's going to go ahead, like it's going to pass, but I think as a councillors, if I request to see it on monthly or every 2 months, I think, I'd like to see it. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments from Council? Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. It was alluded earlier that other communities, this is not a common practice. Can the CFO sort of elaborate on that in regards to that this is not a unique process to not post this registry? And then I just have one more comment, if I could, please.
Yeah. Madam CFO?
Thank you, through Your Worship. Yes, Deputy Mayor Snell, I didn't mean to mention that. Thank you for bringing it up. So I did poll the other municipalities in Simcoe County to see what their practice was with regards to check registers, and I had 11 that responded. Out of the 11, 9 were not producing check registers, and of the 9, 1 had produced check registers in the past and had stopped doing that. Then there were 2 that were producing the check registers, and their general comments inferred to me that they did not recommend the process, and they found it very tedious and time consuming, the redacting that has to go on and the risk of not completing that redaction properly. So those were, and the time involved, those were the reasons why they didn't recommend anyone moving forward and producing check registers. So the information out there certainly supports what we are asking for here. And I believe that gives a little bit of comparator information for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam CFO. Back to you, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. Just a comment. Part of the process, not only as the CFO spoke about with the internal processes, one of the final steps is, as Mayor Smith is aware, on a weekly basis, the checks are signed or the electronic e-transfers are processed and signed. And I know for myself, and the couple of times where I've had to fill in on behalf of the mayor, you get the full list of every item, plus all of the attached invoices, receipts, all communication that has gone in, that's involved in that purchase. And when you look at that, it's the department head that has authorized it for the expenditure. It's gone to the CFO and the Treasury Department for authorization. And all of those steps have happened prior to the check being issued. So not only is there lots of internal stuff, there's lots of final stamps as well. So I just wanted to share that so that that the public and everyone understands, and to address Councillor DeLeo's concerns. There are even that further step with council as well, between the mayor or myself in his absence. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Any other questions or comments from members of council? All right, seeing none, a couple of things I think are worth mentioning. It's been mentioned being open and transparent. Members of the public can request this information at any time, on any given day, should they wish to see this, and it is absolutely and would absolutely be made available. And the same goes for members of council. If you want to come in and see not a prepared check registry, but the registries that are created with the checks and direct payments on a weekly basis, I would think you're more than welcome to come in and have a quick look at that. Just as I do, or the deputy mayor does when we sign off. We go through each check before we sign it, and through the direct payment schedule, and we sign it, and the CFO can back this up. I often ask questions about different items on those registers. I want to be clear that this is not, to me, about social media or about what the general public is thinking or doing. This is about process and policy that is repeatable and defendable. And I think we do that very well in the municipality of Wasaga Beach. When we look to our tax rates and our taxes in general, we are among the lowest in the county. But at the end of the day, we must remember as a council that our job is to govern. Our job is not to manage, it is to govern. And, council comes to us, staff come to us after a lot of hard work every year with a proposed budget. And we debate that budget. And as in this year, staff has come back with what I believe is a very good budget, a very solid budget, and quite frankly, a low budget. And we are a very lean municipality from a staffing standpoint, which again is a big savings to our taxpayers, although I do believe that it is starting to become more of a hindrance and a deficit, if you will, in the long run than a positive, but that's something we need to work on as we move forward. But our job is to govern, it is not to manage. So we agree finally, and we pass a motion to pass the budget. And it's now the responsibility of the CAO, the general managers and department heads to manage that throughout the year. And there are many checks and balances in place. And, at the end of the day, the big reason here is we are continuously seeing and hearing about staff being attacked or treated unfairly. And I want to say publicly that as a politician, I raised my hand to do this job, as did the other 6 members of this council. And so when you do that, although it may not be right, you open yourself up for scrutiny. And so if you want to scrutinize the job that I'm doing as mayor or members of council are doing, and you want to be obnoxious and rude about it, or you want to tell lies or whatever the case may be, fill your boots. That's part of the job. But staff do not sign up to be abused and to be accused. And it is totally unfair. Staff are simply carrying out the wishes of council. And we have passed a budget, and they're doing their job. And I will say over and over that they do it very well. So this is about dollars and cents. This is about creating a lot of extra work that doesn't need to be created. And, it may only be $2,000 to some, but $2,000 is a lot of money to many people. And whether it's 2,000, 200,000, or 2 million, if we can save and we can lessen the burden on staff by creating a report that is already created on a weekly basis, basically, and reported on quarterly, and is audited annually in depth by an external auditing firm, then I think that we are very open, very transparent, and as I said, these registers and this information is available to the public upon request at any time. And so I would leave it at that. I would advise that we do not necessarily dwell on the fact of what people are doing on social media, and that we dwell on what is the right thing to do and what is best procedurally. And it's why I will be supporting this motion. So I will read the question, and that is that the recommended motion, the report titled Check Registers to the Council meeting of January 16, 2025 be received, and that Council approve the removal of preparing check registers for publishing. Any other questions or comments on this matter? Seeing none, I'll ask, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor Timms, and I'll ask the clerk to call the question. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Councillor DeLeo.
Opposed?
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
That motion carries, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And moving on now to the next item, short-term lease for the former Stars Arena at 425 River Road West. And this was polled by Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you? Okay. So I have a couple questions here. So that I understand this correctly, because it was a little blurry for me. So the full rental price for 3 months, to rent this for 3 months to Elections Canada is $115,260, inclusive of HST. So that means the price actually coming to the town is $102,000, plus of course the $13,260 HST, which needs to be submitted to the government. Now, if we factor in the $35,000 for plywood, the actual rental price now is $67,000 for the 3 months, which comes out to $22,333.33 monthly. But there's no mention of utilities for gas, hydro, water, and janitorial services, and not to mention the installation of the plywood. So is the town paying for these utilities? Because if we are, then our rental fee now goes down. So, and I'd like to ask Chris, if he's here, if he may, what fees does it take to run the Stars Arena monthly that the town pays? Like, I'm just curious. I want to know a bottom price that we're going to be getting each month, if you don't mind. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Deputy CAO, I think you led this so far, so I'll let you speak to it first.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. To Councillor DeLeo's point, the $102,000 was arrived at by two different numbers. So one was a base rent of $75,000 or $25,000 a month, and how that arrived at was $20 per square feet times 15,000 square feet, which is the average rates here in the area. And that rent is inclusive of the utilities that Councillor DeLeo was asking about. So the $25,000 per month on base rent is including utilities, and then the flooring, the $27,000, so $75,000 there. I budgeted $27,000 for the flooring, which is really 450 sheets of 5/8 plywood. That's $60 a sheet. We did not want to come back to council if our costs crept up in that. That's why you see the $35,000. My expectation is I'm not going to spend $27,000. Really, that $27,000 was an online search of going to Home Depot and Rona and saying, how much is a 4x8 sheet of 5/8 plywood? So those are the numbers in play. Generally speaking, the province does pay $25,000 a month, and we did it up to accommodate the plywood. Beyond the fact that we're going to use that plywood, the plywood's going to be in reasonably good shape. It's not going to be, rough and tumble. Outdoor activity is going to be a sheet of 6 mil poly underneath it, then the plywood. So our plan is to actually put that on the market for sale once the rent is complete. So it does give you a little bit of high level numbers. Councilor DeLeo has as to how it arrived at 102.
All right, and
Well, I'm not
Director Roos, did you want to comment on this? Director Roos, are you there?
I'll message the director,
Okay.
Mayor Smith, if we want to go with further questions.
Yeah, I'm sure there isn't any question that can't be answered by the Deputy CAO here. Did you have further questions? Oh, there he is. Welcome, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Smith. The one commentary I can offer is that we do have budget in the 2025 budget, obviously knowing that the building isn't sold yet. There is 20,000 for hydro and another 5,000 for the heat and water services. So that is available throughout the period of the lease. In fact, we're covered for the entire year.
And I believe we will be paying that whether we lease this building out or not, correct?
That's correct. We have base heat on in the building right now to make sure that the space remains conditioned all winter.
Great, thank you. All right, Councilor Doyle?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the numbers. That's it. I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Eagle?
Thank you. Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Yes, my question is, Deputy CAO, could the flooring have been used that we have for the TPEL? Probably not, but I guess the public and I would like to know. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So the challenge there is we have a committed event in the fourth week of June where that flooring's got to occupy the arena and cover the floor space in the arena. You wouldn't want to risk putting that floor down and then having that election not occur when everybody's anticipating. And the reason that the federal governments have reached out to us is I guess the positioning at the federal level is there will be a non-confidence vote near the end of March that will actually terminate the federal government as we see it today. 44 days after that occurs, the first Monday after the 44th day is when the election is the earliest an election could occur, which is Monday, May the 5th. And so that's why you see that. So the dates could slide a little bit, a couple of weeks either direction. So that's why the flooring, we did debate that, Councilor Eagle, should we use the floor? Do we take the chance? And at the end of the day, I think the risk to both the commitments would be in jeopardy if we did that. So the plywood flooring was the solution.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor. Councilor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. I mistakenly thought the plywood was going somewhere else. So it's your plan to put plywood down on the what would be the dirt floor where the ice pad was, I'm assuming here, to create a flat space for them to operate their thing. Is the reason, is this an accessibility reason? Because there's the upstairs at the arena, I'm sure is more than enough square footage to operate the voting station. Is it because it's not handicap accessible?
It's a variety of things, Councilor White. So this is not just a polling station. This is going to be the main area training center. So they're going to be training people from other polling stations will come to our arena and they'll get trained. So if you can visualize our arena, if you divide the arena in half lengthwise, so right through center ice from one end to the other, they're going to occupy all the space to the left-hand side. And so the first part of that space, which is closest to the foyer, is where they're going to have all their training and undertaking going on there, table set up for training and video. The back half of the rink is for all the storage of all the materials that they need. So they'll come in the back entrance where the Zamboni is, and that's where they'll unload their trucks. They'll roll their dollies and unload the products that they need onto that back half. So that's so it's not just a voting station, it's a center, if you will, and a training center.
Okay, through Your Worship, if it's okay, just one further question. Is it just laying a bunch of sheets of plywood down on some poly onto some dirt? Is that safe? it just seems to me like if you got a walker, you got a cane, if you got anything, and do these things shift? Like, is this has Elections Canada reviewed this plan and given it the green light?
So the answer is yes. They actually laid out the plan, so we're following their plan to a T. And we will, though, secure the plywood to one another with clips. And so, yeah, those clips that go in between the seams that clip down and bind the floor together, so it stops that slippage that you're concerned with. And Director Roos and I were out there a couple of weeks back, and Juliana walking on that floor, and the dirt floor itself is really packed, and as you can imagine, why it had all that ice on it for all those years. So that floor is really solid. So there shouldn't be much movement of the floor, but to protect against your concern, it'll be clipped together and bound that way.
Thank you for the context.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Jerry. Madam Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just 2 points. One is I'd like to commend the Deputy CAO for being so innovative with this reach out or the follow through in regards to this contract. It's bringing in much needed dollars for a building that's just sitting empty otherwise. My question is, if the building or property should be sold between now and the lease, what would be the situation there? What would be your plan or response, please?
Thank you. We're going to, Andrew, the CEO and I have chatted about this, so we'll include the lease within the sale. So the sale could actually, we could lease the facility back in some arrangement with the owner. It could be deducted from the price point, or the owner could actually take over the rent, the lease itself, and they would, we'd have to do some kind of chat with them about how that would unfold. But what I like about the situation now is we don't have a offer in front of us. By the time an offer comes in and some due diligence happens, I think we're safe and secure that way. But we did, in fact, look at Plan B that would look at the Recplex as a Plan B solution. So should something change in the interim, but we really did feel the purchase and sale agreement could accommodate this lease.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Snell.
Just want to say that's great. Great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. I too commend staff, Jerry, for putting this together. I mean, I look at this as found money. This is whether we get 25,000, 10,000, 3,000. It's dollars we're not getting otherwise, and this is found money, and it's good money, and it's a good tenant. We know that they're going to come in, they're going to maintain, and then they're going to leave. With respect to the lease and a sale, should a sale come forward, I think based on the average due diligence and whatnot, we'll probably be fine there. But if not, we could also just make the closing date the day after this lease is done as well, so we get those funds. So I commend staff, great job, and look forward to getting through this. So we do have a recommended motion that the report titled Short-Term Lease Former Stars Arena 425 River Road West to the council meeting of January 16, 2025 be received, and that council authorize the short-term lease of the former Stars Arena to Elections Canada for approximately $115,260 inclusive of HST, and that council approve an unbudgeted expense for plywood at a cost not to exceed $35,000 to be funded from the lease payments, and that the Deputy CAO be authorized to execute the lease agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor DeLeo. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, call the vote, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor?
Carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the Beachfront Stonebridge Agreement Purchase and Sale. And this was pulled again by Councillor DeLeo. Councillor?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this weighted quite heavily on me when I saw this agreement. So I want to point out firsthand that I'm glad that Mark Crow, Stonebridge, stepped up. They have amazing quality, amazing workmanship. So I'm really pleased about that. But reading this agreement, I'm a little stumped on it. So that I understand this correctly, the town gets paid the $14 million for both the sale of the land and also development fees after each unit is closes? So I was under the understanding that Stonebridge was going to buy the lands outright and then build. So, for instance, if a purchaser wants a closing date of, let's say, 2 years from the purchase date, that would mean that the town would have to wait 2 years as well. So why isn't the exact amount listed on the agreement for each of the 5 phases? So that's one part of it. Then my second question, which is quite interesting for me, is Stonebridge had indicated that these townhomes will be freehold. So can they confirm whether they will have a common element condo fee? Do you know that, Mayor Smith? Would you know that? Can you answer?
Well, if they're freehold condos, I don't imagine they would have a common element fee, but I'm not an expert in that. I don't know, maybe the CAO has better advice on that, Mr. CAO?
Yes, I can answer all of your questions once you're finished, but I'll certainly take that one first off. There's been no indication from Stonebridge that these will be freehold. Just so that council and the community understands the difference between freehold, common element, and standard condo. Freehold means that the exterior, the landscaping, etc., is maintained by each individual owner. A standard condo means that there's a condo corporation that maintains all the grounds, etc. Our preference is that this entire development be standard condo, and to my knowledge, that is what Mr. Crow at Stonebridge intends to do, not freehold.
Councillor DeLeo?
Yeah, so, okay, because I'm not very understanding that. So standard would mean that there would be a common element fee from each purchaser, like every month? Can you just...
So terminology is important. Common element condo is actually a unique type of condo. That's not what we are talking about. A standard condominium, yes, you are correct. Typically, you have a monthly maintenance fee. What that fee is, the developer will figure all of that out. And as part of your purchase and sale agreement, you will be required to pay a monthly fee to the condo corporation. So that is how virtually every condominium in Canada works. That is how condominiums in Wasaga Beach work.
So in that case, though, so how does this affect the closing? Will there be an occupancy before the actual closing? And how long do you propose then before the town gets paid for these units? So if I'm understanding this agreement correctly, each unit, when it closes, that's when the town gets paid, correct?
So let me explain why the agreement has been structured the way it has been structured. Stonebridge, Mr. Crow, operate somewhat differently from a number of other developers in the province. What Mr. Crow has shared with us is he has found in the Wasaga Beach market, he likes to build his product first and then sell it. And that has been his practice. Currently, he is under construction along River Road East. There's a development being built right now by Stonebridge. He has not sold all of the units, so he is upfronting the cost to build all of the units, which is millions of dollars. That is his intention with this development on the beachfront. Phase 1, we call it building on spec, which means he is going to, out of his own pocket, pay to construct the entire Phase 1 development upfront with not one sale. He will then put them up for sale once the product is finished. He has found in Wasaga Beach, buyers like to be able to walk through a unit, see the unit, touch the unit, understand and see the finishes, etc. And he's proven that to be quite successful in the market. What this means is the entire development will actually move a lot quicker because he has found units sell quicker when people can actually see them, touch them, etc. And closings can be immediate. So you don't have to buy a unit off a plan and wait 2 years for a unit to be constructed. The unit is ready to go. You can walk in, you can do a quick closing. So it is a different from what most developers do, where they pre-sale and they wait till they get a certain threshold of sales before they start construction. Personally, I like this model. I think for the municipality, it will get us to a finished community a lot quicker. And council has previously seen the phasing timeline. It's very aggressive, and Stonebridge intends to keep building as they go through this. So yes, the units, the full amount of the dollars will flow on closing, but we don't anticipate that this will be a long, drawn-out process. And each phase has been structured a little bit differently in terms of the money up front, the money on the back end. Development charges for most of the phases will be paid up front. So the town will get that money up front. It's the value of the land. So one further question that you had posed was, how does the 14 million get broken up? The 14 million will be proportionally allocated to the area of each phase. So the total dollars that will flow to the municipality is 14 million, and then that gets broken down by proportionately each phase as a share of the 14 million. Hopefully that answers your questions.
It does, but I'm still having a hard time with the fact that he's not buying the lands outright. I've spoken to a couple of other realtors and they've really never heard of this. You buy land, you build, but the land is yours once you buy it. So if he doesn't sell any condos, the town is on the hook. We're basically financing him to do that. So I just a curious question here. So how much are we losing if we're giving him a $14 million land? If in 5 years, how much interest are we losing by giving him that money rather than getting it up front? Because if I'm going to build a home and I'm buying land and I want to build a home and I see land, I'm going to buy the land. I'm not going to say to the owners, I'll pay you once my house is built and once I sell it. So I'm just having a hard time with that. And I'm just curious, would he be open to paying the full 14 million and then the development fees as it go on? Because I was totally under the impression when we had our first meeting that was the understanding. He's going to buy it and build, and everything will just follow from phase to phase. Now I'm reading this and it's like, no, I'm not going to pay you the 14 million. I will pay you when each unit closes. So if a unit doesn't close, we're on the hook for that, meaning land-wise. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's not making any sense to me. It's just not.
Well, I think it's very important to have some clarity here for the public, because as we're speaking here now, I think we're somewhat misleading the public. First of all, the land that is received will be paid for phase by phase, and what isn't received or what isn't paid for still remains in the ownership of the town. So we're not on the hook for anything. We still own the land, and we still have full control. Should we decide we're not happy at some point, we have the ability then to make the changes we wish to make. So that's very important, because this is about being able to control as we move forward and to make sure that the town is happy with what we're seeing is done there. We can get into the minutia of the agreement or any deal that the town does on any occasion, but at the end of the day, to say that we're under the understanding that he was going to pay everything up front, and now it's not that way, I don't know where that came from, because I've been a part of this negotiation in the same meetings that the rest of council have had. And what I understood was that $14 million was the price for all of the land in its totality in that area, and that the agreement was still being negotiated, which it has been, and that's why it's now coming back to us here. So I never had the understanding that he was paying $14 million all at once or in phases, or whether we were going to hold back or whether we would hold any financing, because that was still being negotiated. And it was negotiated, and here it is before us today. So now we know what we know. So I want to be clear to the public. I don't know what other members of council heard, but it was clear to me $14 million was the purchase price for this tract of land, and the rest was being negotiated to come back to council, which it is now being come back to us here today. So there was nothing misleading about this. It's very clear. We received the information to go over it before this meeting as it was negotiated, and now we can debate it, and now we can make a decision. I think it's very important for the public to know that. Mr. CAO, did you want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I would completely agree. That has always been what we have portrayed to council. That has always been how the deal would be structured. It's a phased deal. In the APS, the Agreement of Purchase and Sale, it's very clear that until such time as a future phase is unlocked, the municipality maintains control. If there is currently public parking on those lands, the municipality can continue to charge for parking and collect that revenue. So the risk to the municipality is incredibly small here. It's being unlocked phase by phase. If a phase does not unfold the way we want it to, you simply don't unlock the subsequent phase. But again, the way the deal has been structured is because of the fact that Stonebridge is front-ending so much capital dollars here without pre-selling units. That will get us a development built much quicker and get us to the finish line much quicker.
Thank
So
you,
if I
Mr.
may
Seer.
add,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Councillor.
Yeah. To your comment there, Mr. Mayor, I didn't say it was, I actually said it was my understanding. That's what I understood. That was my.
So, Councillor, let me be clear.
was-
I'm not referring to you specifically. I'm
Okay.
simply clarifying the record.
Because that was so for me, I think I would feel more comfortable if each phase opens up and he pays for each phase up front. And then he builds his homes and then he sells them. But the fact that we have to wait for each unit to be sold in order for us to get paid, I have a problem with that. I really do. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, next was Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to echo a little bit of what Councillor DeLejo has said, just in maybe a bit of a different way. I am a little bit concerned about some of the details not being explicitly valued in the agreement. With the phasing, it is phased in, especially on phase one, where the funds for the land purchase don't and the development charges don't come in until 1 to 2 days after the closing of each unit. But it does get a little less risky as we move on, as you see in phase 4 and 5. It goes to 75% and 100% up front, which is very good and good for the town. But I would like to have seen a little bit more with regards to phase 1 is this amount of money, you know what I mean? Phase 2 is this amount of money and how it's calculated. Because you said in one breath, I feel like we talked about it being representative of the size of the parcel. However, the APS, sorry, my screen's over here from APS. The APS over here is talking about being at a per unit calculation. So, you know, like I just like to have seen those numbers down there. I do agree that being flexible like this allows smaller developers to come in and not have to be, you know, on the hook for giant swaths of land and massive agreements. So for us to have a smaller developer come in and put in a more customizable product, I think is great. And to your point, yes, building spec homes and selling them is a heck of a lot faster than trying to pre-sell a dream on a prospectus. So I do feel like the taxpayer is going to benefit from a quicker turnaround. But one of the things I am concerned about is the risk and the parking revenue. They're not really, again, explained. You know, what is the mechanism for the town when it comes to what constitutes a default of purchase the next phase? So if let's say Mr. Crow and all of his ambition does front the construction cost of this, which is terrific, and then maybe he doesn't sell. Maybe the market goes for crazy. Maybe what's going on globally has an impact on this more so than we have any say over. And he doesn't decide to go forward. At what point do we get to say we're going to move on to somebody else? What happens if his company folds? I just feel like there's a lot of details that are missing with regards to the parking revenue. If he moves on a second phase and we've got cars in there, what does that look like? I just feel like it's just a little light on those really good details. So I would like to see a little bit more of that. Otherwise, I'm pretty confident that the plan is good. I feel like we are being very friendly and very welcoming to this type of developer, which is, testament to our values as a town. But I feel like the APS just didn't have enough numbers in it for me. And so anything that you can share that way, I think would be helpful for us and the residents.
Sorry, I forgot to have my mute on. Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Ego is next.
Thank you, and through you, your worship. Yes, my comment is just a comment that Mr. Crow makes his money by building and selling homes as quickly as possible. He cannot flip this land. He has to build to make his money, and it's proven he has that formula that we have seen in this town. So I think this is a very fair and sensible approach to construction, especially in today's market. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ego. Councillor Belanger.
Thank you, through the mayor. A couple of things, and one is I was certainly very involved during a farmer phased deal that the town was able to get out of, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of that, but it also had some phasing attached, and was this deal is light years ahead, in my opinion. The other thing is we failed to talk about. We talk about that we have the land value that is locked up until the sale, but the developer has far more money tied up in a completed dwelling. So when we say that a product can't sell, if he has a tremendous amount of money invested, you're going to, I can guarantee that they're going to adjust some prices to ensure that sales happen. You know, because no developer can sit on pre-built inventory for a long period of time. So the market does decide the value of what product would sell for. And when that product is sold, we will then be paid. So I have no concern because the developer has far more at stake than what we do. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Belanger. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then I will read the question. Recommended motion is that the report titled Beachfront Stonebridge Agreement of Purchase and Sale to the council meeting of January 26, 2025 be received, and the council approve the agreement of purchase and sale between the town and Stonebridge Building Group, Inc., the town-owned beachfront lands bounded by 1st Street and 3rd Streets, Mosley Street and Beach Drive, and the council declares surplus Part 6 and Part 7 of the attached reference plan to the agreement of purchase and sale, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement of purchase and sale. Any other further questions or comments? Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell and seconded by Councillor Ego. All in favor? Sorry, Madam Clerk, call the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Councillor DeLeo.
Opposed?
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor.
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
That motion carries, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Moving on to the next item, the December 19, 2024 County of Simcoe OPP detachment billing increase, and again, pulled by Councillor DeLeo and Councillor Timms. Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. At the October 24th, 2024 council meeting, council sent a motion in October to the county and the province requesting the annual OPP billing statement be reduced and that the county look at a regional police force to assist the town in the exorbitant increase in cost. The province came to the table and did announce over $77 million to municipalities in order to offset the increased cost of policing. This assisted the town and allowed the proposed tax increase to remain under 4%. In the correspondence from the county, County Council has requested that Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing perform a review of the OPP billing formula through the Auditor General to consider the fairness and equity. I feel this is extremely important to ensure that there is no further unexpected increases for municipalities and our taxpayers. Therefore, I would like to also send a letter of support to the province and to County of Simcoe for their additional ask to the MMAH to do the OPP billing formula. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really just would reiterate what Councillor DeLeo has stated, and that was why I pulled the report. Thank you.
All right then, so councillors, are you looking to make a motion here then, or what are you asking for exactly?
I believe it's just to send a letter of support. That was on my part.
Okay, so a motion to send a letter of support, Madam, and the same with Councillor Timms. I'm assuming we need a mover and a seconder for that. Madam Clerk, I'll look to you for a process.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was relayed to me that council may be seeking a letter of support, so we did prepare a motion, if I may, table.
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas the town of Wasaga Beach received correspondence from the County of Simcoe dated December 19th, 2024, regarding the request to the province for the OPP detachment billing increases. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Wasaga Beach Council support the County of Simcoe in their request to the province to initiate a review of the OPP billing formula, and further that a copy of this resolution, together with a copy of the County of Simcoe's letter, be forwarded to the Honourable Michael Kersner, Minister of Solicitor General, Honourable Paul Calandra, MMAH, MPP Saunderson, Simcoe Grey, and the County of Simcoe.
All right, is that suitable to both of you ladies, Councillor DeLeo, Councillor Timms? Seeing you nod yes, all right. So Council, you have heard that question. I'm assuming that will be moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor Timms. All right, do you want to call the vote, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Belanger.
In favor?
Councillor DeLeo.
In favor.
Councillor Eagle.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on then, if there's no other questions or comments on this item. All right, we'll then move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Code of Conduct. And again, this was now pulled by Councillor Ego and Councillor Timms. Councillor Ego?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I appreciate that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is proposing new legislation to standardize the code of conduct across the province. I also appreciate that in this amendment, they are asking for our comments and have given us 60 days to reply. My query is, if an elected official has been convicted by the courts for an offense related to the code of conduct, workplace violence, and harassment, why would they not automatically be removed from office? Elected officials should be held to the same standards as every working Ontarian operating under workplace violence and harassment policies. I appreciate the value of Ontario's integrity commissioners in their role as advisors to council. However, I believe when a case has been ruled by the courts, there should be no further inquiry, the courts rule. I do not believe the decision should ultimately come back for council to vote on. See the unanimous vote of council in this report. Integrity commissioners are hired by the city or municipality, and the cost for that inquiry would fall to the taxpayers.
Anything further, Councillor Eagle, or is that it?
No, I'm asking the clerk to, yes, there is more, sorry. Sorry. I appreciate the value of Ontario's commissioners, I've said that. I do believe the decision should ultimately come back to the council to vote on. And I'm asking the fellow councillors to consider the request for our comments on this very important subject and send your thoughts to staff. I'm also asking for a staff report to assist us in our response to Honorable Paul Calandra, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
All right, thank you, Councillor. And now moving to Councillor Timms. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really support what Councillor Eagle has just said with regards to the Integrity Commissioner. I don't understand that piece of this puzzle, why it would go to Integrity Commissioner after the court has already made a decision. I just wanted to ensure in asking for this item to be pulled that this would have a great deal of our attention and that we would thoughtfully put together feedback to move changes in this regard. And really, that was why I asked for the poll. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this matter? All right, I understand, the clerk, you have a motion prepared.
Thank you, Your Worship. We could handle this two ways. We could get council direction that I do submit the council comments with regards to the code of conduct, that they support strengthening the code of conduct and the additional piece of any charges, convictions, that would be automatically withdrawal of office, removal of office. I can submit that directly on behalf of this council if that were to pass. Alternatively, we could refer it back to staff to have a council report returned January 30th prior to the submission deadline to outline council's comments.
So I think it's important to be clear when you say any convictions, we're talking any convictions with respect to human rights and or labor relations, correct? So this would not include speeding tickets, so on and so forth, and those convictions, right?
Correct.
All right. I think that suffices with respect to what the councillors are speaking to. I'll look to any other questions or comments from council on this before we do that motion. Deputy Mayor Snell.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I would also would love to see that, you know, if there's a significant theft, if there's assault, in particular against the opposite gender, you know, violent situations, things like that. Like, I think I'd like to look at this a little bit more before just tackling the two issues, because I think there's other pieces that I am shocked at that people are still able to hold in office when they are guilty and have been found guilty of certain situations. So I prefer that this go back to staff, come back with a report that we're able to then pick apart and or that we can provide feedback to help direct that report from staff. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Timms, I see your hand is up again.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to say that I prefer the staff report plan. Thank you.
And that staff report to come back to council before we send those recommendations, correct? Okay, Councillor White?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the staff report coming back too. There is while I agree with Councillor Ego that, you know, creating this, you know, feedback loop of, you know, courts and then to the Integrity Commissioner and whatnot. But I do struggle from a legal perspective around if you're convicted of a defined crime while you're a sitting council member, that should be an automatic removal of you from office. I do feel I struggle with that one just a little bit legally, although morally that stands up really, really tall. But legally in this country, we have the appeal process, and it's quite possible that something gets overturned on appeal, and then we expose the municipality to a great deal of liability should they get their conviction overturned. And then now what are we doing with salaries and all these different things with regards to council members who have been wrongfully removed from office? So I do feel like just a scooch more thought on the legal side of things needs to go into this. And whereas that's the case, I would ask the experts of our town staff to provide us a little bit of their context. And so having this come back would be very much supported by me.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Belanger.
Let me see if I'm muted. Yes, I just had the same question is, Councillor White, that you have to take into consideration that there is an appeal process. So, and I did now see where I can raise my hand electronically. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to agree with Councillor White and with Councillor Snell, Deputy Mayor Snell. I'd like to see a report come back before we vote on this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Seeing other comments, I couldn't agree more. I guess the thing we always have to take into consideration is that you're an elected official. And so for a court to remove you from office is a pretty major move. And not that I don't think people should be, but I think it also has to coincide with what the rules and regulations will be federally and provincially as well, because this should apply to all politicians, not just municipal. And so for that reason, I think it's very important that a report come back to us. I think it's important to know how what the plan is with respect to federal and provincial levels as well, because once we put this forth and these changes are made, it then will come back to us as a municipality to make sure that whatever decisions we made are going to be able to be upheld in court should something occur or someone fight that down the road. So it's not as easy as many might think, and it's why I'm sure they're reaching out to municipalities for our comments, because they understand that this is a very complicated matter. All right, Madam Clerk, do you have a resolution?
I do see Councillor Ego's hand raised as well, Your Worship.
Oh, okay, Councillor Ego.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and through you. Yes, I just want to reiterate how very pleased I am that this would go to staff, that it is such an important topic, and that we have the time that the ministry has given and asked the municipalities for their feedback. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I see no other hands. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. I prepared a motion that the correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding code of conduct be referred back to staff for more information and comment matrix for council consideration at the next meeting.
All right, you've heard the question. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Ego. Madam Clerk, call the question.
Councillor Belanger.
In favor.
Councillor DeLeo.
Approved.
Councillor Ego.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Snell.
In favor?
Councillor Timms.
In favor.
Councillor White.
In favor.
Mayor Smith.
In favor.
Carries unanimously, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And now moving on to item number 14, recommendations arising from boards and committees, and we have no recommendations today. Item 15 is council requested staff reports as listed in the attached documents. Any questions or comments on staff reports? Councillor Belanger.
Yes, through the mayor. In a previous meeting of council, we had a presentation from regarding the Green Hub Economy Pilot Project for South Georgian Bay. And I would like to request a staff report on the feasibility of the town of Wasaga Beach participating in that South Georgian Bay pilot project. We have a number of local businesses that are interested in joining that pilot project. And there's a couple of options for funding. It's could be within the advisory committee's budget, and the staff report would make a recommendation for council to look at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Look to the CAO at this point with respect to that. Any issues, Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, none at all. We can have a report on the next agenda.
Okay. You good with that, Councillor? All right. Any other issues with respect to staff reports?
Sorry, Your
Councillor
Worship.
Timms?
I apologize, Your Worship.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before you go, Councillor Timms, Madam Clerk?
Sorry, for council requested staff reports, we do need a mover and seconder on each request.
Yes, okay. I will come back to that as soon as I'm done with the rest of council. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship. Very recently, within the last week, I've been asked on the status of the Small Business Enterprise Center, and I know that it was returned to staff for a response of what we're doing there. I just wondered if we could have an update in an upcoming meeting, please, so we know what to tell the public.
Yes, I think I see the CAO shaking his head yes, so I think we can get that possibly on the next agenda as well. All right, thank you. Okay, then we have Councillor Belanger asking for that report from staff. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carries. All right, moving on to item number 16, notices of motion. We have none today.
Sorry, Your
And
Worship.
item 17 is closed session. We do have an important call I've been made aware of from MPP Saunderson has requested me to attend between 12 and 1, which is during the lunchtime anyway. So I think what we'll do is we will move into closed session, but for the public's information, we may break for lunch during that closed session and then come back. So just so the public's aware. So the recommended motion is
Sorry,
that
Your Worship. I
Sorry,
apologize.
Madam Clerk.
Sorry, it's, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just require that motion for Councillor Tim's council requested staff report with regards to small business enterprise.
So I believe that report was already requested, and we're just looking, she wanted an update and when that would come back. And I think the CAO indicated that we could probably have that back next week, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. I believe we can do that.
Yeah, and that report was already requested some time ago.
My apologies, I do see it on the list.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk, no problem. Don't apologize for doing your job, Madam Clerk, you do it well. So the motion for closed sessions pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 is amended. The next portion of the January 16, 2025 council meeting will move into closed session to consider the following matters. 17.3.1 proposed disposition or acquisition of lands. 17.3.2 2024 Auditor's Management Letter. 2025-0116-19 and 17.3.3 proposed disposition or acquisition of lands again. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries unanimously. We'll now go into closed session.
Okay, Your Worship, we're live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. And we're now coming out of closed session and the lunch break. And I will look to our clerk for a rise and report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council met in closed session today at 11:45 a.m. with a recess for lunch to discuss the following matters. Item 17.3.1, proposed disposition acquisition of lands in accordance with Section 239(2)C of the Act. Item 17.3.3, proposed disposition acquisition of land as well in accordance with Section 239(2)C. As a result of these two items and discussion, Council provided staff direction. Council also heard item 17.3.2, the 2024 Auditor's Management Letter in accordance with Section 239(2)B. As a result of that discussion, there's nothing further to report. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And we'll now move on to item number 19, which is bylaws. The recommended motion that the bylaws 2025-01, 2025-02, and 2025-03 be received and to be deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Snell, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That carries unanimously. And then on to items... No, I think that's it, and we're now looking to adjourn this meeting. So have a good afternoon, everybody, and we'll see everyone back at 6 o'clock for our planning session tonight. This meeting is now adjourned.